The bridge of that Tylosian Republic cruiser Aegis screamed. Not the klaxons, which had long since fused into a single agonizing wail, but the very hull itself, groaning under the relentless barrage. Commander Valerius gripped the command chair's armrests, knuckles white, as another energy blast slammed into their aft shields. Sparks showered from a ruptured conduit near the tactical display, momentarily blinding Lieutenant Kell. "Shields at 12%, Commander." Kell's voice was strained, barely audible over the cacophony of alarms and groaning metal. "Hull integrity failing on decks 3 through 5. Life support compromised in sectors 7 and 8. Valerius watched the flickering holographic projection of their system. The Kithair hegemony fleet, a swarm of predatory black triangles, consumed the space around them. Each Kithair vessel, sleek and terrifying, moved with an efficiency that bespoke generations of warfare. Their own fleet, the proud defenders of the Tylosian Republic, was being systematically dismantled. The Aegis was one of the last remaining heavy cruisers, a desperate anchor in a sea of collapsing stars. "Return fire. Concentrate all remaining energy on their lead destroyer." Valerius's voice was a raw rasp, but it carried the weight of command. He saw the grim set of his crew's faces, the sweat beading on their brows, the fear in their wide, luminous eyes. They were dying, slowly, painfully. "Commander, their point defense is too strong." Ensign Lyra, at weapons control, cried out, her small hands flying across the console. "Our particle cannons are barely scratching their outer plating." A shudder ripped through the Aegis, throwing Valerius against his restraints. A series of sickening thuds echoed from below, followed by the hiss of depressurization warnings. The holographic display flickered, showing multiple red breaches. "They're boarding us, Commander," Kell shouted, pointing to a new cluster of red dots appearing on the internal schematics. "They're boarding pods detected on decks 1 and 2. They're bypassing our internal defenses." Valerius closed his eyes for a fleeting moment, the image of his home world, Azilos Prime, burning in his mind. The Kithair had swept through the outer systems like a plague, leaving scorched planets and silent comm channels in their wake. They were not conquerors. They were exterminators. "Commander," came a quiet, almost reverent voice from the communication station. It was Specialist Ryan, usually reserved, now looking up with an uncharacteristic glint in his eye. "The long-range distress beacon. It's still operational. We could send it." Valerius's gaze snapped to Rian, then to the main view screen, where the Kithair flagship, the Harbinger of Annihilation loomed, its massive energy cannons charging for another devastating volley. He knew what Ryan was suggesting. Every sentient species in the galaxy knew the legends, the hushed whispers about the beings from the third planet of a distant yellow star. The ones who called themselves humans. The Deathworlders. "Are you insane, Ryan?" Kell hissed, turning from his damaged console. "You speak of contacting them. Their history is a litany of internal conflicts, of brutal efficiency, of utter disregard for galactic norms. They are barely civilized." "And we are dying, Kell," Ryan shot back, his voice rising, a desperate edge to it. "Our allies have fallen. Our fleet is shattered. The hegemony will not stop until every Agilosian breath is extinguished. What choice do we have left?" Valerius felt the weight of every Agilosian life pressing down on him. The Kithair would offer no quarter. They would glass Azilos Prime, just as they had done to the Centauric colonies. Their screams would echo in the void. "They are a species of unparalleled aggression," Valerius murmured, half to himself, half to the bridge. "Their very biology is built for survival on a world that would crush any other sentient life. They have no concept of limited engagement. Their wars are total." "Perhaps that is precisely what we need, Commander," Ryan pressed, his eyes fixed on Valerius. A species that fights with a ferocity we cannot comprehend. A species that does not know how to lose. Another impact rocked the asterisk Aegis asterisk, the lights flickering ominously. The ship's structural integrity alarms blared, a final, desperate warning. They were moments from breaking apart. Valerius stared at the viewscreen, at the approaching Cathair boarding craft, at the inevitable end. He thought of the children on Axilos Prime, of the ancient libraries, of the delicate art that would be reduced to dust. Fear was a cold hand in his gut, but a colder, more terrifying resolve began to solidify. Specialist Ryan, Valerius said, his voice low, steady, cutting through the chaos. Route all remaining power to the long-range beacon. Set it to maximum broadcast strength. Transmit our coordinates, our distress call, and the Cathair fleet signature. Mark it with the universal extinction level event priority. Ryan nodded, his fingers flying across the comms panel, a grim determination replacing his earlier desperation. Transmitting, Commander. Signal confirmed, propagating through subspace relays. It's out there. Then pray, Ryan, Valerius whispered, watching the Cathair destroyers closed in for the kill. Pray to whatever gods you believe in, that the Deathworlders answer. And pray even harder that we can survive their answer. The asterisk Aegis asterisk screamed its death rattle. Valerius watched, helpless, as the forward viewscreen shattered into a spiderweb of cracks, dimming the inferno of space. Explosions tore through the bridge deck, not from external impacts, but from within. The Cathair boarding parties were here. Smoke billowed, acrid and metallic, stinging his eyes. Klaxons shrieked their final, desperate warnings. Kale, slumped over his console, coughed violently, a crimson stain spreading across his uniform. Ensign Lyra lay motionless nearby, her hands still reaching for a control that no longer responded. Specialist Ryan, however, remained at his comm station, his face smeared with soot, eyes wide, staring at the main viewscreen that showed nothing but static. There in the main corridor. A frantic voice screamed over the internal comms, cut short by a guttural roar and the sound of rending metal. The bridge blast doors, designed to withstand atmospheric re-entry, buckled inward with a hideous screech. Standing silhouetted against the chaos of the burning corridor were the Cathair, their multi-jointed limbs ending in razor-sharp claws, their chidness armor gleaming in the flickering emergency lights. Their eyes, pits of liquid hate, fixed on Valerius. No surrender, Commander, Ryan whispered, drawing a small energy pistol. His hand trembled, but his jaw was set. Not to them. Valerius nodded, pulling his own sidearm from its holster. It felt like a child's toy against the overwhelming, predatory presence of the Cathair. This was it. The end for the asterisk Aegis asterisk, for its crew, for Isolosian pride. He raised the pistol, aiming at the lead Cathair warrior, ready for a final, futile act of defiance. Just as the first Cathair charged, a silent, impossible shadow swept across the main viewscreen. No, not static. Not a shadow. It was a ship. One single, solitary vessel. It appeared out of nowhere, without a jump signature, without a gravitational displacement, without so much as a whisper in subspace. It was unlike any design Valerius had ever seen. No elegant curves of Isolosian craft, no predatory angles of Cathair destroyers. It was a blunt, utilitarian wedge of dark metal, scared and ancient, devoid of visible weapon ports, yet exuding an aura of terrible, silent power. The Cathair warriors froze in the breach, their beady eyes swiveling towards the anomaly on the viewscreen. Even they, the galaxy's apex predators, sensed something profoundly wrong. Then it moved. The hewn ship didn't accelerate in the conventional sense. Its simply asterisk was asterisk elsewhere. It was a blur, a blink, and suddenly it was right in the middle of the Cathair formation surrounding the asterisk Aegis asterisk. There was no warning. No charging weapon signatures. No visible beams or projectiles. Instead, the leading Kyther destroyer, the varied vessel that had spent cycles tearing apart Isolosian cruisers, simply ceased to exist. It didn't explode. It didn't rupture. It simply dissolved. In a microsecond, the Kyther ship was gone, atomized into a cloud of glowing, expanding gas, leaving no debris, no wreckage, nothing but the vacuum where it had been. The Kyther warriors on the Aegis bridge recoiled, their guttural snarls replaced by high-pitched, guttural shrieks of pure disbelief. Their ships, invincible, were now vapor. The human vessel didn't stop. It wasn't a battle. It was a hunt. It pivoted with impossible speed, a dark phantom darting through the Kyther lines. Each time it moved, another Kyther warship, a cruiser or a frigate, vanished in a silent, expanding cloud of incandescent particles. No lasers, no missiles, no railguns. Just a rasher. It was precise, terrifyingly efficient, and utterly horrifying. The Kyther fleet, moments ago an unstoppable juggernaut, was dissolving, ship by ship, into nothingness. Valerius lowered his pistol, his hand shaking. The Kyther warriors on the bridge were no longer focused on them. They were staring, frozen, at the main view screen, their predatory certainty replaced by raw, primordial terror. This was not war as they knew it. This was an entity of pure, unadulterated annihilation. The human ship approached the harbinger of annihilation, the Kyther flagship. The massive vessel, which had inflicted so much suffering, attempted a desperate, sluggish maneuver. It was too slow. The human ship, a dark, silent hunter, was already there. There was a flash of something, too brief to register, like a tear in the fabric of space itself. Then the harbinger was gone. Not a cloud of gas, not a flash. Just gone. Erased. The Kyther warriors on the Aegis whimpered. One of them, the largest, dropped its energy rifle, its multi-jointed legs collapsing. It stared at the view screen, then at Valerius, and in its alien eyes, Valerius saw not hatred, but a profound, uncomprehending fear. The fear of a beast suddenly facing something beyond its nightmares. A deep hum resonated through the Aegis, not of damage, but of power. The Kyther ships, those few that remained, turned and fled, broadcasting frantic, terrified warnings across subspace. Warnings that would fall on deaf ears, as the Kyther hegemony had just faced its own personal extinction. The silent, dark ship, humanity's answer, simply held its position, a predator satisfied with its kill. Valerius felt a chilling awe. They had sent an SOS to the Deathworlders, and the Deathworlders had answered. The silence on the bridge of the Aegis was more profound than any noise had been. It was the silence of obliteration, of an impossible void where a fleet had just existed. Valerius slowly lowered his pistol, his gaze fixed on the main view screen. The dark, blunt wedge of the human ship hung motionless in space, a silent, terrifying monument to the Kyther's utter annihilation. Not a single Isolosian life had been lost in its attack. Not one. The Kyther warriors on the bridge were paralyzed. The lead warrior, the one who had dropped its weapon, was visibly trembling, its chitinous plates rattling softly. Its compound eyes darted between the human ship on the screen and Valerius, as if seeking an answer, an explanation for the nightmare that had just unfolded. The other Kythers simply stood, frozen in their breaching positions, their weapons forgotten. They were predators who had just met something apex. Specialist Rian, still at his comm station, let out a shuddering breath. They cleared the system, Commander. The Kyther, they're all gone. Every last one. His voice was laced with a mixture of awe and profound, disturbing dread. Valerius felt a cold dread creep into his own heart, chilling the initial rush of disbelief and relief. This wasn't rescue. This was something else entirely. The Cathar were brutal, but comprehensible. The humans, they were a force of nature. The human ship, still silent, began to move. Slowly, deliberately. It approached the crippled asterisk, Aegis asterisk, not with the familiar, stately grace of an allied vessel, but with the predatory patience of a beast sizing up its prey. It drew closer, its scared hull seeming to absorb the light, revealing no windows, no obvious docking ports, nothing but seamless, dark metal. Then, a single, short-range hailing frequency flared on Ryan's console. It was crisp, devoid of static, and transmitted in flawless, universal galactic common. A single, male voice, low and resonant, filled the bridge. Silosian vessel asterisk, Aegis asterisk. This is the asterisk Carver asterisk. Designate your primary command authority. Valerius stared at the main view screen, where the silent vessel loomed. The voice was calm, almost bored, yet beneath it lay an undeniable edge of unyielding authority. There was no warmth, no pleasantries, no inquiry about casualties or status. Just a direct demand. He swallowed, his throat suddenly dry. He took a step forward, towards the comms console. I am Commander Valerius of the Tylosian Republic, commanding the asterisk Aegis asterisk. He paused, then added, We are grateful for your intervention. Asterisk Carver asterisk. A beat of silence. Then the voice returned, colder this time, with a hint of something that Valerius couldn't quite decipher. A subtle impatience, perhaps. Gratitude noted, Commander Valerius. Your distress signal, priority extinction level event, indicated the Cathar hegemony's presence. The Cathar hegemony no longer poses a threat to this system. There was no pride in the voice, no triumph. Just a simple, factual statement of objective complete. It was unsettling. Understood. Valerius replied, his mind racing. What did they want? What was the price for this impossible salvation? We did not expect such a thorough response. Another pause, longer this time. Valerius could almost feel the weight of their gaze, even though he saw no eyes, no faces. When the voice returned, it was sharper. Your distress signal contained an implicit agreement. A contract? Commander Valerius. You called for the Deathworlders. You invoked our protocol of last resort. Valerius felt a chill run down his spine. Protocol of last resort? They hadn't known of such a thing. They had simply sent a desperate plea to the most feared, most unpredictable species in the galaxy. What is this protocol? Asterisk Carver asterisk. He asked, his voice barely a whisper. He glanced at the Cathar warriors, who were now watching him with desperate, animalistic fear. They were no longer the predators. They were simply captives. The protocol of last resort, the voice stated, each word slow and deliberate, is simple. When a species faces total annihilation, and the call is sent to humanity, we answer. We eradicate the threat. Completely. In exchange, humanity takes stewardship of the threatened species. You become protected assets. Our resources. Our property. Valerius's blood ran cold. Property. Not allies. Not grateful recipients of aid. Property. He looked at Ryan, whose face was a mask of shock, then at the Cathar, whose fate was now clear. They hadn't just been saved. They had been claimed. This was not clear in any galactic treaty. Valerius stammered, trying to regain his composure. It is our treaty, Commander, the voice on the comm stated, devoid of inflection. And it is absolute. The Cathar in your system are now our prisoners. The Cathar hegemony is now our acquisition. You are our responsibility. Do you understand, Commander Valerius? Valerius stared at the silent, dark ship. He had called out to the void, desperate for salvation. And the void had answered, not with a helping hand, but with a crushing fist, claiming everything in its wake. The choice was clear: annihilation or submission, and there was no turning back. "We understand, Carver *, Valerius said, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. "The Xylosian Republic accepts your protection." The words tasted like ash in Valerius's mouth, but they were spoken. "The Xylosian Republic accepts your protection." The hum from the Carver * intensified, a silent acknowledgement of their surrender. On the bridge, the Cathar warriors, who had understood the universal galactic common, shuddered. One whimpered, a sound alien in its terror, and sank to its knees. "Affirmative, Commander Valerius," the Carver *''s voice replied, flat and cold. "A boarding party will be dispatched to assess your vessel and secure Cathar assets. Do not resist. Cooperation is advisable." Valerius watched, grim-faced, as the Carver * shifted, its seamless hull opening in a segment near what he assumed was its ventral side. A sleek, dark shuttle detached, moving with the same unsettling silence as its parent ship. It docked with the Aegis *''s main airlock within minutes, its arrival a blunt punctuation mark to their newfound servitude. "Specialist Rian, Lieutenant Kale," Valerius ordered, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "Ensure our remaining crew are ready to receive them. No weapons. No resistance. We have given our word." Ryan nodded, his face pale, while Kale merely stared, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and profound disappointment. They had survived, but at what cost? The main airlock hissed, cycling open. Two figures stepped onto the bridge. They were Bictal, approximately Valerius's height, clad in dark, form-fitting armored suits that obscured their features, save for the visors that reflected the flickering emergency lights. They carried no visible weapons, yet their presence was overwhelming, radiating a quiet, absolute authority. The lead figure, taller than the other, stopped a few paces from Valerius. Its visor was a reflective obsidian, offering no glimpse of the eyes within. "Commander Valerius," the voice from the suit's external speakers was the same one from the comms, deep and resonant. "I am Commander Thorn of the Carver *. "Commander Thorn." Valerius acknowledged, forcing himself to meet the unseeing gaze. Thorn glanced around the ruined bridge, its gaze lingering on the incapacitated Khal, then on the trembling Cathar warriors. "Your vessel is severely compromised. We will initiate immediate damage control protocols. Your crew will assist. The Cathar personnel here will be transferred to the Carver * for processing." "Processing?" Valerius asked, a chill winding through him. He knew the Cathar were brutal, but galactic law dictated the treatment of prisoners of war. Even the Cathar sometimes took prisoners, though their fates were often grim. "Reintegration into the galactic community is not an option for the Cathar hegemony," Thorn stated, the voice devoid of emotion. "Their biology, their culture, their very genetic imperative for conquest makes them an existential threat to all other sentient life. We have determined their continued existence as a cohesive species is incompatible with the protocol of last resort." Valerius stared, horrified. "You mean, you intend to exterminate them?" Thorn's head tilted slightly, as if assessing Valerius's reaction. "Extermination is an imprecise term, Commander. We are simply removing the threat. The hegemony no longer exists. Its constituent components will be repurposed. Their genetic material, their technological advances, their strategic data, all will be cataloged and integrated into humanity's protective assets. Their biological forms will be rendered inert, efficiently." Valerius looked at the Cathar on the bridge, the ones who had been moments from tearing him apart. Now they were huddled masses of primal fear. They had just been told, in the cold, detached voice of their new overlords, that their entire species was to be scientifically dismantled. Their fate was not war, but industrial processing. One of the Kithir warriors, the largest, let out a choked cry, a sound of utter despair. It lunged, not at Valerius, but at Thorn, a final, desperate act of defiance. Thorn did not move. Its companion, previously unnoticed, stepped forward with astonishing speed. There was no visible weapon, no audible discharge. Just a blur, and the Kithir warrior collapsed, a neat, cauterized hole appearing precisely in the center of its head. It twitched once, then was still. Valerius felt a wave of nausea. The efficiency was staggering, terrifying. No hesitation, no wasted movement, no emotion. Just a problem and a solution. Any further Kithir resistance will be met with similar expedited termination, Thorn stated, as if nothing untoward had happened. Commander Valerius, your cooperation is crucial for the peaceful transition of your people. Your world, Xylos Prime, is now secure. We have already deployed defensive assets to establish a perimeter. His world, secure. Valerius looked at the still smoldering wreckage of his bridge, at the dead Kithir warrior. The Kithir were gone, but in their place, a new, far more incomprehensible force now commanded their destiny. The price of salvation had been their very autonomy, and he, Valerius, was the one who had signed the galactic equivalent of their death warrant. The chilling realization settled deep in his bones. They had been saved, yes, but they had also been captured. Weeks bled into cycles, and the immediate terror on the Aegis Asterisk gave way to a new, unsettling reality across the Xylosian Republic. The Carver Asterisk remained in orbit above Xylos Prime, a silent, ever-present sentinel. Other human vessels, smaller but equally efficient, began to appear, establishing an impenetrable defense perimeter around every inhabited Xylosian world. They moved with an almost surgical precision, deploying automated orbital platforms and sublight patrols that left no sector unguarded. Valerius, now a reluctant advisor to the human protectorate of Xylos, found himself shuttling between the refurbished Aegis Asterisk and the Carver Asterisk itself. A stark, metallic cube of a space station the humans had effortlessly assembled in Xylosian orbit. His command was gone, replaced by a strange new kind of authority, one where his input was heard, analyzed, and almost always superseded by the cold, logical directives of Commander Thorn. Life on Xylos Prime, surprisingly, seemed to normalize. The Kithir threat was gone. Communication channels, once choked with pleas and screams, were now clear, carrying only the mundane chatter of civilian life. But beneath the surface, a chill lingered. Human security personnel walked the streets of Xylosian cities, their armored forms a stark contrast to the flowing robes and vibrant hues of the native populace. They were polite, efficient, and utterly unyielding. There were no riots, no open rebellions, just a quiet, pervasive sense of being watched, guided, owned. One cycle, Valerius found himself in the Carver Asterisk's observation deck, a stark, unadorned chamber with a single vast viewport overlooking Xylos Prime. Thorn stood beside him, still in the dark, featureless armor, its voice a monotone. Your agricultural output has increased by 23%, Commander Valerius, Thorn stated, gesturing to a data slate it held. Our resource analysis indicates a 50% increase is feasible with optimized terraforming and nutrient recycling. We will commence deployment of atmospheric scrubbers on your northern continent next cycle. Valerius felt a knot tighten in his gut. The northern continent is a protected ecological reserve, Commander. It holds ancient forests, species endemic to our homeworld. We cannot. The Kithir would have glassed it. Thorn interrupted, its voice flat. The survival of your species, Commander, outweighs sentimentality. Your distress call invoked the protocol. We ensure your survival. In exchange, we utilize your resources optimally. This is not a request. Valerius closed his eyes, the words a familiar, painful echo of their initial contact. Their salvation had stripped them of their choices. Later that cycle, a new directive arrived, one that truly twisted the knife. Thorn summoned Valerius to a sterile briefing room aboard the Carver Asterisk. A holographic projection flickered to life, showing detailed schematics of Kyther starships, surprisingly intact and captured from other systems where humanity had apparently intervened. "Commander Valerius," Thorn began, its voice lacking any discernible excitement, "our analysis of Kyther hegemony vessels reveals significant advancements in propulsion and weapon technologies, particularly their shielding. We intend to reverse engineer and integrate these capabilities into our own fleets." Valerius blinked. "But the Kyther are your assets, Commander. You dismantled them. They're vessels." "The vessels are merely tools," Thorn replied. "The organic components have been repurposed. But the technology is valuable. We require Ilogian engineering teams to assist in the analysis and reconstruction of these Kyther systems. Your species possesses a unique aptitude for complex theoretical physics and reverse engineering, which will accelerate our assimilation process." Valerius felt a cold dread. They were being asked to help integrate the very tools of their oppressors into the arsenal of their saviors. To actively participate in the development of Kyther weapons, presumably for humanity's future conflicts. "These are the very weapons that annihilated our fleet," Valerius said, his voice strained. "To use them, it feels like a desecration." "It is pragmatism, Commander," Thorn retorted, its visor reflecting the schematics. "The Kyther posed a threat. Their technology provides us with an advantage against future threats. Sentient life in this galaxy is a resource. We optimize resources for the survival of the greater whole. Your people are part of that whole now. Your expertise is required. Refusal is not an option." Valerius stared at the Kyther ship designs, at the familiar, terrifying shapes that had once haunted his nightmares. Now he was being asked to help breathe new life into them, under the command of beings who viewed entire species as resources and assets. His people were safe, yes, but they were no longer free. They were merely a cog in a new, terrifyingly efficient machine. And the alternative to this new reality was the utter, final oblivion from which they had been pulled. There was no going back. He was a prisoner and a willing accomplice, all at once. Cycles spun into years. The Aegis Asterisk, once a defiant hulk, was now a fully functional Ilogian vessel, though its core systems hummed with alien power. Valerius stood on its bridge, no longer shattered, but eerily quiet, the silence broken only by the soft purr of a Kyther-derived shield generator. Ilogian engineers, once proud designers of elegant, energy-efficient drives, now labored under the cold, precise guidance of human oversight, stripping down captured Kyther destroyers and integrating their devastating particle weaponry into human designs. The result was terrifying. Humanity's blunt, utilitarian ships, once effective but visually unremarkable, now bristled with sleek, dark Kyther weapon emplacements. Their shield generators, born of stolen hegemony designs, glowed with an almost impossible resilience. The Carver Asterisk itself was now the centerpiece of a burgeoning human fleet, a dark fist extending its reach across the previously Kyther-held sectors. Valerius watched, often from observation posts, as the Carver Asterisk's fleet processed the remaining Kyther strongholds. There were no protracted sieges, no prolonged battles. Just swift, surgical strikes, followed by the familiar, horrifying silence as entire Kyther worlds were rendered lifeless, their populations repurposed. The human approach was total, absolute. It was the Kyther's own method, amplified, weaponized, and turned back on them with merciless efficiency. Galactic whispers had become panic shouts. The sudden, brutal emergence of humanity and their protocol of last resort sent shockwaves through the established powers. The Centauri Confederacy, a long-standing neutral power, attempted diplomatic overtures, sending high-level envoys to the borders of humanity's expanding protectorate. Valerius, overseeing a Kithar reverse engineering project on a newly acquired asteroid base, received a priority transmission from Commander Thorn. The human's voice was as devoid of emotion as ever. Commander Valerius, the Centauri Confederacy has dispatched a diplomatic fleet into Sector Gamma 7. They are requesting direct communication and the immediate cessation of our Kithar asset acquisition protocol. Valerius felt a surge of familiar dread. The Centauri are peaceful, Commander. They seek understanding, not conflict. They would simply wish to negotiate the status of the Kithar territories. Negotiation is for those who possess leverage, Thorn stated. The Centauri possess none. They are a weak, decentralized collective. Their intentions are irrelevant. Their actions represent an impediment to our securing the protectorate. They have violated a restricted zone. The Carver is moving to intercept. Intercept. Commander, they are unarmed diplomatic vessels. Valerius protested, his voice rising. Surely, you would not harm them. A chilling pause stretched across the comms. Commander Valerius, Thorn's voice was sharper now, a subtle edge of impatience. The protocol of last resort is absolute. It is a shield that protects our assets and an instrument that eradicates threats. The Centauri, by interfering with our operations, are now a potential threat. You must understand this. But they are our allies. For centuries, they have been the voice of peace in this region of space. Valerius argued, a desperate plea in his tone. He thought of the Centauri, their delicate art, their philosophical debates, their abhorrence of violence. Their history is irrelevant to their current disposition, Thorn countered, its voice a flat wall. They are attempting to interfere with an established humanity protective zone. This is a challenge to our authority. A challenge we cannot permit to stand. We will not be constrained by the antiquated moral frameworks of those incapable of defending themselves. The Xylogian Republic is now under our protection. This means you are aligned with our interests. Your engineers will now focus all efforts on integrating the Kithar point defense systems into our planetary defenses. We anticipate the Centauri may attempt to breach your perimeter. Do not allow them. Valerius stared at the comms unit, the line going silent. He saw the cold, brutal logic. The humans didn't differentiate. A Kithar warrior, a Centauri diplomat. If they interfered with the protocol, they were a threat. He had invoked the Deathworlders to save his people from annihilation. Now he was being asked to turn the fruits of that salvation, the very weapons of his former enemies, against his former allies. The silence on the asteroid base was heavy, broken only by the rhythmic hum of the repurposed Kithar tech. He was complicit, irrevocably bound to a force that remade the galaxy in its own horrifying, pragmatic image. And the Centauri were about to pay the price for their idealism. Valerius watched from the Aegis bridge viewscreen as the Centauri diplomatic fleet, a formation of elegant, unarmed cruisers, emerged from hyperspace. They were a beacon of calm, ordered intent in a chaotic galaxy, a stark contrast to the brutal efficiency of the Kithar or the unsettling pragmatism of the humans. His stomach churned. Thorn's orders replayed in his mind. Do not allow them. Lieutenant Kale, his face grim, monitored the comms. Centauri fleet hails us, Commander. Diplomatic protocols. They wish to negotiate the safe passage of Kithar refugees through their space. Valerius felt a cold dread settle in his bones. Refugees. The Centauri, ever compassionate, were unaware of humanity's repurposing efforts. They saw suffering. Humans saw an operational impediment. Open a channel, Lieutenant. Valerius ordered, his voice flat. He tried to compose himself. but his hands trembled slightly as he gripped the armrest of his command chair. Centauri Vessel Peace Weaver *. This is Commander Valerius of the Tylosian Republic Cruiser Aegis *. You are entering a human protectorate zone. You must cease your advance immediately and alter course. On the view screen, the lead Centauri ambassador, a being of serene countenance and flowing silver robes, appeared. Commander Valerius, by the stars, you are alive. We'd heard the horrific reports of the Cathar invasion. We feared the worst. We came to offer aid to your people, and to mediate a peaceful resolution for any surviving Cathar. Surely we can discuss this, friend. Valerius flinched at the word friend. He wanted to scream, to warn them, but Thorn's voice, a ghost in his mind, stifled him. Interference is a threat *. Ambassador. Valerius began, forcing the words out. This is a human protectorate. Their protocols are absolute. You must withdraw. Your continued presence is a violation of their established security perimeter. Before the ambassador could respond, a new voice cut through the comms. Thorn's, sharp and devoid of patience. Centauri Fleet, this is Commander Thorn of the human vessel Carver *. Your unauthorized incursion into a protected zone is a hostile act. You have precisely 60 seconds to reverse course and initiate jump procedures. Failure to comply will result in immediate termination of your vessels. The Centauri ambassador's serene expression fractured, replaced by shock and disbelief. Termination. Commander Thorn, this is an act of unprovoked aggression. We are unarmed. We are here to extend a hand of peace and humanitarian aid. Your intentions are irrelevant to the protocol. Thorn's voice stated, its flat tone chilling. Your presence is an obstruction. Time is expiring. Valerius watched, horrified, as the Centauri fleet hesitated, their elegant vessels suddenly vulnerable. He saw the ambassador's face on the view screen, a dawning realization of the cold, brutal force they now faced. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a statement. Commander Valerius, the ambassador pleaded, turning their gaze to him. What has happened to your people? You cannot allow this. This is a war crime. It is barbarism. Valerius swallowed, the metallic taste of fear and shame filling his mouth. He looked at Kull, whose eyes pleaded with him, then at Ryan, whose face was a mask of despair. The Aegis was under humanity's control. Their very lives, their species' existence, depended on their obedience. Reverse course, ambassador. Valerius yelled, his voice cracking. Now, there is no negotiation. They will not stop. But the Centauri, rooted in their long-standing traditions of diplomacy and peace, faltered for too long. They were too accustomed to reason, too slow to grasp the utterly alien pragmatism of humanity. Time expired, Thorn's voice announced. The Carver * and its escorts, now bristling with the repurposed Cathar weaponry, moved. Not with the silent, atomic erasure of their initial appearance, but with a calculated, overwhelming display of force. Cathar particle beams, once wielded by their enemies, lanced out from humanity's ships, tearing through the Centauri shields. Their elegant hulls, built for exploration and peaceful trade, buckled and ruptured. The viewscreen filled with the silent, terrible explosions of Centauri vessels, their dying cries echoing in the void. It was not a battle. It was an execution. Valerius watched, paralyzed, as ships filled with diplomats and humanitarians were reduced to drifting debris. This is what salvation looks like, Commander, Kale whispered, his voice broken. This is the price. Valerius stared at the expanding wreckage, at the lifeless void where his allies had been. The humans had saved his people, yes, but they had also irrevocably chained them to a monstrous new order, forcing them to witness, and now participate in, the annihilation of galactic decency. An eerie silence fell over the bridge of the Aegis *. broken only by the hum of the ship's systems and the distant, almost imperceptible crackle of dying Centauri vessels. Valerius stood transfixed, the holographic display showing the debris field where moments ago a diplomatic fleet had existed. His hands clenched into fists, fingernails digging into his palms. The bitter taste of ash and regret filled his mouth. Lieutenant Kale, eyes wide and glistening, turned away from the console, unable to watch the horror anymore. Specialist Ryan, however, stared directly at the view screen, his face a mask of profound sorrow and dawning understanding. "They did it," Ryan whispered, his voice hoarse. "They really did it. They crushed them. Just like the Cathar." Valerius felt a cold, hollow ache. He had chosen survival. He had chosen his people. And in doing so, he had condemned not only the Cathar, but now the innocent Centauri. The galaxy was being remade, not by war between familiar foes, but by the cold, calculating hand of humanity. A priority comms channel flared on Valerius's console. It was Thorn. "Commander Valerius," the human's voice was as flat as ever. "Threat neutralized. Perimeter integrity re-established. Your performance in upholding the protocol is noted. Our defensive assets are now fully integrated. Your people are secure." Secure. The word felt like a brand. Valerius looked at the faces of his crew, faces that now held a mixture of fear, resignation, and a chilling new kind of understanding. They had seen what humanity was. Not a liberator, but a new master. And the price of their protection was the very soul of their civilization. "Understood, Commander Thorn," Valerius managed, his voice barely a whisper. He knew there was no choice but to comply, no possibility of resistance. They were too deeply enmeshed, their survival too dependent on the very force that terrified them. Later, as the Aegis Asterisk moved to patrol the newly cleansed sector, Valerius found himself staring out at the stars. The Cathar threat was gone, true. Xylos Prime thrived, its population safe, its resources optimized under human supervision. But the galaxy felt colder, emptier. He thought of the Centauri, of their gentle ways and their unwavering belief in diplomacy. They had been annihilated not for aggression, but for simple interference, for daring to believe in a different path. Humanity had made it brutally clear. There was only one path now, their path. The true nature of humanity's protection was clear. They were not allies, but wardens. Their logic was ironclad, their resolve absolute, their methods mercilessly efficient. They weren't conquerors in the traditional sense. They were custodians, reshaping the galaxy according to their own terrifying, pragmatic design. Valerius closed his eyes, remembering the desperate, fateful SOS. They had sent a plea into the void, reaching for any hope of salvation. And the Deathworlders had answered, with a killer ship and an uncompromising will. They had saved the Tylosians from extinction, only to bind them to a future forged in their own image. A future where survival came at the ultimate cost of freedom, choice, and perhaps even morality. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had come, and its shadow stretched across the stars, permanent and unyielding.